What's going on, family? It's your brother Lawrence here with another episode of Watch God Work. In each episode, we get the distinct pleasure to talk to a brother or sister who's doing exceptional work in every field of human endeavor. In our conversations, we have them share their God story, the ways in which God has been at work in their lives, and the ways in which God has been at work in their work. And today, I have my brother, Ryan Wilson. What's going on, King?
What's going on? It's good to be here.
Man, it's good to have you here, man. I think you are no stranger, nor is your name unrecognizable. You have been a part of creating such a institution in a space in the city of Atlanta that has
Thank
been quite active, especially in the past year. I'm pretty sure you didn't get no sleep in the past year, but for the better part of the past couple of years, you celebrate 5 years as a founder, and I call you all chief stewards of the gathering spot. But brother, your story is much more. And so I got to kick off like we kick off with all people. Who is Ryan Wilson, good brother?
Well, I want to first say, hey, I appreciate you. This is a phenomenal opportunity to talk about something that a lot of parts I think we'll explore today are things that I don't get a chance to talk about enough. So I appreciate you having me on. Ryan Wilson is is a man of God first and foremost,
Mm.
but I'm an entrepreneur, right? And that is surprising to me to be able to say because that was not my plan in any way, shape, or form. Outside of that hat, the only other one that I wear these days that is important to me is as a spouse
Mm.
and as a father. And if folks know those three things about me, I'm normally pretty good.
Mm. Brother, man, I love that because I think a lot of times people don't necessarily speak about the triangle offense when they talk about their identity, and where God, their relationship to others, particularly those of their loved ones. But it's quite clear, and so I just kind of have to understand, man, the genesis, man, with you
Yeah.
of how does one come and start to with having a desire first for even going to law school, went into practice law. How early on in your life did you get a sense, at least to that stage, like this is what I want to do? And then obviously we'll connect the dots from there to the gathering.
So I was extremely boring growing up. My goal from as early as I can remember, I mean, age 5, was to be an attorney, and for
Mm,
me, that was about being able to be in position to help folks.
mm,
When I studied folks in our community that had done things that I really admired, a lot of them seemed to have law degrees,
mm,
and many people in my family. I come from a long line of AME preachers. I grew up inside of the AME church, and uh, I didn't necessarily see that as a path. I didn't see ministry full time.
mm,
Um, Law felt like this thing that would connect me to the efforts that I had seen, even within my own family. And again, it didn't matter really when you asked me, age 5 or 15, that was going to be the thing that I was going to tell you that I would do.
mm. I wonder what was that dynamic, right? Was it a dynamic where at least you felt that you were given the space at home, coming from a long line of AME preachers and the like? What did that look like, at least for you, kind of growing up? Was it a hey, you could do whatever you need to do as long as you get an education and that's fine, or was that somewhat of a conversation over time?
So my parents are not ministers.
Mm,
They're entrepreneurs. My dad started a company after working in corporate America like for 16 years. He had the idea of starting a call center. So I remember my parents going through that process. I remember the first two people in our basement with this company getting started. But again, for me, that just felt like something that was going to be their thing, and
mm,
certainly not my thing. And I uh I don't know. I mean, the idea to start TGS really came when I got all the way to law school. So if I back up a quick step, I was an undergrad, extremely involved. I went to, I felt like every student organization that you could, but and this connects back to my my walk. I went to a meeting called it was an organization called GU Brothers for Christ,
Mm.
and in that meeting, I met a guy who's still a brother to me. His name is Brian Keston, and I talked to Brian about some of his work, and he was starting an organization called the Student Commission for Unity.
Mm.
And so, coming out of this Bible study, I joined Brian in this what amounted to a research report. We wrote like 350 pages,
That's a
analyzing.
thesis, Playboy.
Yeah, this was a side project. We were getting any extra credit for this.
Mhm.
Um, but we wrote 350 pages analyzing the campus climate from a diversity and inclusion perspective.
Mm.
And so what ended up happening from that report is that the president of the university took on the research. And so I spent the majority of my years in college doing this diversity and inclusion and social justice oriented
Mm.
work, and that was how most folks knew me.
Mm.
And again, it felt like preparation for ultimately why I wanted to be a lawyer. So both personally and then academically, all of my interests while I was in school were aligning.
Mm.
It took me going to law school. So I graduated from Georgetown, immediately went to law school at Georgetown. And to make a very long story short, between my first year and my second year, I was working at a law firm here in Atlanta, and I had not really enjoyed my experience at the firm.
Mm.
And it was weird because again, I've been working this like at that point 10-year plus plan to become an attorney, and I'm not really enjoying what I'm doing each day. I couldn't imagine really like sitting behind this computer screen, and I wasn't working on issues that I connected to at
Mm.
all. And that was the same summer as the Trayvon Martin case, and so what I was connected to and what was watching was that case. And when George Zimmerman was acquitted of Trayvon Martin's murder, I got an email from my friend Brian, and Brian, subject of the email was, "What are we going to do?" And I responded back to him with the idea of starting the Gathering Spot,
Mm.
and that was July of 2013. So that's really how we got going.
Man, I appreciate you walking. I appreciate you the way you walk through that, because I think when people see the fruit, right, of it, right, and have been able to walk into the space, a beautiful space, by the way, and we'll talk a little bit more detail about it, but um, I don't think people understand just how quote unquote serendipitous or just how divine sometimes these things come together, right? Because very easily, with all of the events of 2013 that summer, you may have gone a different path. You may have toughed it out, quote unquote. You could have just done and
Yeah.
continued in that path, but you took a different one. I, even around this picture of Christ in that study, was that for you the genesis? And I think I'm always very careful because I have a lot of closest friends who grew up who grew up in the Atlanta area, grew up around us in the South, and kind of, and so for them, to some degree, it was cultural first, and then they went on their own journey, and then it became real for them at different stages of their life. When did for you? When did God become real? Where you said, you know what, was it at that Bible study with Brian where he kind of took a little bit more ownership of it, or what was the genesis story for you and God?
Yeah, so I'm going to use real and then more real
Mm, levels.
as my because I can't say, I mean, it was important to me when I was an undergrad. Um, God was very much real to me then. I mean, I wasn't at that Bible study on accident. It was important for me, even while I was in school, to try to be involved in any organization that I felt like would continue what I knew
Mm,
growing up, which was being involved in the church and being involved in activities that brought me closer to the word. So I
mm,
wasn't there on accident,
mm,
but it was really when we started the business that my real shifted into more real.
mm.
And I can talk about some of what was happening that made
Please do,
God
bro.
extremely real to me. But it looking at, I mean, the business opened in 2016, in March of 2016, but I would say 2015 and 2016 there was a very dramatic shift and my faith, given our circumstances at the time.
Mm, mm. And so go in a bit more detail because I think I can understand this from the context from business of starting any venture and going on the journey
Yeah,
of having to convince people, right? And people to buy into the vision, literally, like buy into the
yeah,
vision and write checks. And then now you have
yeah,
people on payroll depending upon you. Things are due now, and you have to now turn. You have to make this in a quote unquote accretive deal for people sooner than later, right? Was
yeah,
that kind of like the push, or were there other elements, right? Can you give a little more detail about how it
yeah.
became real?
So I mean, I'll just tell y'all directly what was going on. So what happened was, we have the idea in 2013. I'm writing a business plan for a couple years. I sent the plan to one of my college roommates. His name is TK. He's now my business partner, and we started working. I mean, every night he would come to my apartment. We would work till really early in the morning. He had a full time job. I was a full time law student, but we kept working the plan, day in and day out. And I was scheduled to graduate from law school in 2015. So as I approached graduation, we really needed to start to take some of those plans needed to start to become something, that folks were going to be able to see and
Mm,
experience. And so transitioning from that idea stage into like truly where is it going to be, and more importantly, how is it going to be capitalized,
mm,
was a big, transition for us. Faith for me, during this time, though, I mean, and I attribute, some bit of this too to just being young. I mean, I was for the part of the story I'm talking about now, 23, 24 years old. So there were a lot of things that I just like didn't know, frankly, to be afraid of.
mm,
But the parts that I did know to be afraid of, I legitimately had the faith that they were going to work out some way.
mm,
So we were signing deals because you have a little bit of an issue when you're, starting out in a business like ours, where you need space in order to solicit investment, but you need investment in order to be able to secure that space and to design it. Right. And so we were doing this dance every day trying to figure out how to make the two things come in on time. And there were a lot of folks telling us no. I mean, we started counting to the point where it was 97 straight people that were telling us no. And some of those no's being very, very painful no's along the way. Um, and I mean, truthfully, if you looked financially at the business at that time, it didn't make any sense what we were doing. I mean, it's on paper, we had not raised very much money. Um, we had obligations that were significant. I mean, every deal we were signing was six figures
mm,
plus. And when staring at construction, that was several million dollars. That the number kept growing. We thought it was a million, then we thought it was two, ended up being 3 million. And when the day that we started our construction process, we did not have all of that money in the bank at all, right? And so I remember, um, really just praying, right, that if we just continued to just to take, each day at a time, that the resources that we needed when we needed them would be there.
mm,
But early on in the process, when I say they were not there, they were not there, right? They were 100% not we did not we did, I mean, we didn't have it. And so, how this connects to, faith, I want to be careful here. I don't want to represent to folks that, I believe that God is definitely in the business of
mm,
miracles. But, I mean, there was real work. I also believe that that's part of what we're called to do. You've got to be putting in, the work. So we were not standing still at
mm.
all. But there are some parts of our story that I cannot explain, but for God being right in the middle of circumstances. I have no idea. I mean, I'm talking about, we need large sums of money to be, to meet our obligations, and these things were so tightly timed that we were receiving, capital. I mean, with truly calling the bank and saying, I just deposited a check and I need you to release the funds because I also wrote a check for the exact same amount today as well. I mean, I'm talking about timing like to the hour, not for next month. I mean, to like minutes where we were truly, I mean, like really at the end, multiple weeks for a long time, right? And I mean, we would get these okays, folks saying, "Okay, I'll come in," and they would come in for, I mean, and no exaggeration in this, they were coming in for the exact amount of money that we needed to make it to just the next week, and that went on for a while, right? I mean, and there was no way to explain what was going on, but to truly, I mean, if you ask my business partner to this day, it was only God that was making that sort of timing be
Mm,
possible. I mean, we were truly down to, I mean, hours on multiple occasions.
mm. Bro, this there's so many things there's so many gems, man, that you're sharing. One of which is just the gift of naivete, of being young. And so, like, I didn't know
Yeah,
what I didn't know. All I knew is that I believed in a vision with with my partner TK. We put
yeah,
we put our hands to the plow, and we did what we needed to do. But we were literally like hand to mouth in the figurative sense of, like, it was literally like, shoot, we got a capital call. He was like, I got a capital call. This person committed 17,000 I needed for this, 17,000 I need to come out for this, 27,000 for this, 20. And so I just think that is very important for, and I think it's a gift, right? I think to some degree, a lot of times we view that naivete, but sometimes you need that space so you have enough faith to believe in the impossible. Which I think is really, really powerful. I think people have a different perspective on spaces now, but I think at that time, remember, I think people now, they see quote unquote we work. They see
yeah.
the businesses where they're like, okay, well, how does this model work? Well, in terms of the revenue that's coming in, how reliable upon, and so you're doing a very big thing. How much was that physical element? Obviously, I think at the core of the business model is a physical space, but how much of
Yeah.
that was the core and the ethos as you guys were thinking about this to say it has to be physical? Why was that so important for you? That this was a
So
physical space, not just a network,
yeah.
a community that people just kind of were digitally connected to.
Yeah, it's interesting topic for us, right? Because the physical space has always been important to us, but we've always looked at it as a tool
Mm.
and really actually not the core part of the business.
Mm.
Now, I don't think you can do the business without the space, right? But to us, the thing that was um and again, I grew up in the church, right? And so a lot of the inspiration for how I was looking at TGS was connected to how I viewed the church. I wasn't necessarily at the church every single day, but the church provided a context for me to know a bunch of folks. Now, we needed the church and the physical space of the church in order to do our work,
Mm.
right? But in another sense, us as a community of believers didn't like the space didn't make that totally so it's a again it's kind of a nuanced thing, but I never wanted to solely believe, and that's I actually thought the thing that other businesses were doing that was a
Mm.
mistake is that they were making the only part of their value proposition be really centered on the
Mm.
space.
Mm.
Part of the only reason that we were able to survive COVID is that the entire time we've had the perspective that it really had to be both, and that spaces could be used as instruments, as tools to do the larger work that we wanted to get done. But again, you're right. We couldn't have done it without it, but we could do some parts of it um, differently. How folks engaged with it, we wanted to be a lot different than some of the folks that we saw creating what looked like similar businesses at the time.
Mm.
But
Bro, I love, man, I love how you I just love how you root the church, the model of the church historically, because I think sometimes a lot of times it's like there's nothing new under the sun. I think more recently people
yeah,
probably have seen the PBS doc about Brother Gates, Dr. Gates, and just kind of
yeah,
really reclaiming just the church and just how innovative, like it was radical organization. And I'm saying
yes,
organization, that's more than that. Obviously it's the ecclesia, it's the organism of the kingdom in on earth, right? So I don't want to minimize that. But I'm saying that to say that it had such a central, I think, connectivity or connective tissue to people in ways that I think it was undervalued. And to your point, you're like, this is beyond the space. The space is critical, but we are not the space, right? And I think I remember early on when learning about TGS and just seeing the excitement that I think hopped out the pages. But I know you're on the other end, like they need to write checks, right? But the
Yeah.
excitement of being a part of something that I think spoke to brothers and sisters, professionals, who were just like, I just want to be a part of something that's ours. I want to be connected to something that has a
Yeah.
bigger vision and mission in the world. I think that is very, very critical. So how did you think about day to day how you hired, how you structured the company, and to what degree did kind of your faith inform how you wanted to do that differently beyond the model? Like, what did that look like with you
Yeah.
and TK when you're thinking through just how you were going to do business differently day to day? What was going to look like?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing that we benefited from was being able to again refer and study my parents' example.
Mm,
And so one thing my dad would do in their call center business, and this was really the only way that I understood how companies hired folks, but he would go to every training class and talk to folks about how he wanted the job. And if you know the call center business,
mm,
call center jobs are not known to be the best environments for folks to work. But he would go to every single training class and talk about how he wanted that job at the company's name was Ryla. My name is Ryan. My sister's name is Lauren. So it was a combination of our name about why that job he wanted to be the best job that they had ever had. And he phrased it that way. And so when we started to think about the way that we would hire, look, I like a lot of things inside of TGS was trying to study like who's writing these rules about the way that we're supposed to do all of these things, and what is it like for me to be guided more about or who I think would be a good fit, honestly, outside of what their resume says, but really, try to build a team of really, really just good people
mm,
that had heart for what we were trying to do. And part of this goes to also not having a ton of experience in the space of hiring anybody.
mm,
So the thing that I knew was, who has a passion like I do to try to solve this
mm,
problem. Am I fundamentally working with good people? And the story that I wanted to tell, but now can tell with confidence, was who's going to be able to grow up with us in this business.
mm,
And I wanted to be able to say that we took bets similar to the folks that were investing in us as investors in the business formally, but then also just stakeholders as members. Um, I didn't believe that if I was willing to go out to folks and say, "Hey, take a bet on two 24-year-olds, two 25-year-olds," that I couldn't do that with folks on our teams.
mm,
So I was hiring people that I don't know, and this is with respect to the many of them are still on our team, but I think it is fair to say that when a lot of them joined, for the level that they were being hired in our organization, that it would have been hard for them under traditional rules to be competitive in that same way.
mm,
So
mm, mm,
we were looking for people and looking for people that again would be able to grow up with us in the business. And I'm proud that we did it that way because yes, the business has been open 5 years in Atlanta, but we have some folks that have been on our team for 6+ years at this point. And that initial goal of kind of having folks grow up with us, we're starting to see that really happen
mm,
day to day, and it's a beautiful thing for me to be able to watch professional growth, but then also how that professional growth ties to personal growth and other milestones. I'm watching folks buy houses and start families, and to know that that early investment that they made with us is also starting to pay dividends
mm.
now. It's special.
I love this because I think it makes it a bit even more tangible for people. I came from a family of entrepreneurs. That's all I've known, right? My dad's an architect, and for me, my mom started a medical staffing business, and one of the things that my dad talked about is in the architecture business, but for most people, there weren't many black people there. There weren't many Spanish people, but my dad was able
Yeah.
to hire people who traditionally
Yep.
were not be hired. And for him, that was such a beautiful thing about the impact that could have generationally for families.
Yep.
And I think a lot of times, brothers and sisters in this position forget about the power you have in being able to
Yep.
choose. But I like how you framed it. Look, it's like it's almost like that parable of kind of like, I was forgiven and now how am I going to act like this? It's like, look, these people took a bet on me. So then
Yeah.
who am I not to look at my team and take bets on brothers and sisters who may not traditionally have been taking bets on? Because like, look, we're 24, 25. Look, people quote unquote shouldn't take bets on us, but they did.
Mhm.
Um, that's that man. That I don't want that needs to breathe, man. People need to hear that. The people really, really need to hear that.
What an honor it is to be able to say that, like to look out at a team and genuinely say, look, we're all underestimated here.
Mm,
No one collectively, no one really thinks that we could do this. And I've always seen it as a part of our charge that if we were given the opportunity, and this started for me, this perspective started to me at Georgetown,
mm,
where it was like, look, I was not, I've sat with my college counselor in high school, and he told me that there was no way I would ever get into Georgetown. So, living in the impossible, right? My mentality has been, well, if you make the mistake, or if I'm granted the opportunity, right, I'm going to maximize this. I'm going to take this thing all the way.
mm,
Otherwise, I think I'm disrespecting. I'm not being a good steward of the opportunity that's been placed before me.
mm,
So that is the same thing that I was saying to my team. I know what that feels like, where you have a person that doubts you, that says that you're only supposed to be X, Y, and Z. And just to ground this for folks, just in terms of the growth that I'm talking
mm,
about, this isn't middle management to senior management. I'm talking about the folks that run our company right now. Many of them started on our front desk. They started on our service teams. They started with on in the back of the house on our kitchen staff, right? So there were moves being made. Like for one person that runs our operation, his first job was weekends front desk when he started at TGS, and now there's a short list of folks. If I was calling about a problem at TGS, that he's on that list and has been for a while. And so a lot of hard work there. I'm not. It's very important to me. I, I didn't make anybody in this. The thing that I was able to do is to facilitate opportunities,
mm,
right, and allow folks to take their own shots. And so I'm proud though that we were able to do that
mm,
and did it with a different rubric, because folks are in much different situations now than traditionally, statistically, what they would have been had we not been in a position to offer opportunities. I mean, now we stand as a team of 130 people,
mm,
and to know that many of those people, again, that are running the business can deeply identify with those that may be just starting out in it, because that was their first job in the company.
mm,
So I think it's a part of the secret sauce of what's made TGS um, successful, because we've been a very scrappy group the whole time, and again had this attitude of like, don't give us a shot, because if you do, we're the type of team that's going to try to maximize it.
mm. Fam, yeah, I think that word's gonna go out. That word's gonna go out, and it just it gives me goosebumps, and it just makes me proud of the things that we create. And for us, it's always bigger. It's bigger. It's bigger than us. And I appreciate that as a brother, hearing you speak about that with such clarity, that I think reverberates down in a real way. I have to ask. I think I want to go a bit even deeper, because I think, as you say, your husband, right? You are in a position where you're managing, and I think for many brothers who may not have had the gift of having a father there, and seeing your parents navigate. Obviously, no parents are perfect, right? But how does your faith inform your boundaries when you stop working, when you don't? This is a conversation I have with brothers all the time around owning a
Yep.
business, like, being a steward, owning a business and having things, but you have responsibilities at home, but you're trying to do that and make sure you're taking care of, you're responsible for so many people and you're responsible at home. How do you manage your guardrails? How does God help you manage just your rhythm and your responsibilities in ways in which you're not burning the candle on both ends? You're keeping what's important most important.
I mean, transparently, this has been an area of real growth for me over
Mm,
the years.
mm,
And to understand where I started in this is, that, I've been with my wife now for over a decade.
mm,
We started dating when we were in college, and so it's been a lot of different seasons. It's been college as a season, it's been law school as a season, and then this pivot right into to starting a company.
mm.
And so I thank God for her every day because it was the switch up of the century. I'm talking about,
That's what
and
you want to
I'm
try.
being engaged. She's marrying a lawyer, and in the middle of that process, I'm like, hold up, I think I'm gonna start a company. And I mean, another part of our journey that was real is that, I mean, we didn't pay ourselves anything for the first 17 months,
Mm,
right? And so my wife, for a while, that whole stretch, right, she was the financial uh, backbone of our little family, and it
mm,
was it was just the two of us. So to answer your question, if I look at that part of the journey, I was a good partner in that I was trying to do my best to navigate out of that situation.
mm,
Um, but I was not, in the sense that I did very little else but try to navigate outside of to get out of the situation, in terms of where the business was, because TGS just, certainly early on, we just did not have, we raised the money, but what folks didn't know was that we raised enough money to finish construction. We had not raised money for operations. And so it truly was day to day. I used to call TK on Mondays and ask him how much money we needed to make it to Friday. And we really lived like that for years. I mean, it was true, and nobody no one could know about it really, except for us and my wife,
mm.
right? And so I I I I I I, I walled it off at home, frankly, because I couldn't talk about it anymore, and the pressure was so immense that, during that time, I mean, I did very little else except to try to figure out how to change our circumstances.
Mm.
As time has gone on, and we welcomed our first child, in
Salute.
the middle of quarantine, April of 2020, and
Congratulations again, good brother.
things things shifted there.
Mm,
Um, because what I realized really quickly, and part of this was because I was at home for the first time with this much time just being at home, um, that where I had spent so much time wanting folks to know about who I was as a CEO, as an entrepreneur. I spent a little bit of time in who I was as right, but everything shifted when my daughter came, because the title that is most important to me, and the title, frankly, that I will not fail at, is as a father.
mm,
And that to me has changed my wife and I's relationship, my relationship certainly between like with the business, but now with prioritizing this new title of father, it's I don't know, it's brought a different type of balance to my life, because I look at everything through the lens of, like, am I or the other titles that I have, am I doing what needs to be done? And that, where I used to be with this, where everything seemed to be centered around the company. The company is still very important to me, but you can call me a bad CEO before you call me a bad husband and a bad father, is
mm,
where I'm at now, and that's where I'm happy to be.
mm. bruh. That's music, man. That that is music to hear, man. And I want to. It was a reason why I'm asked. I asked you this question because I think that responsibility. I think a lot of people want to be CEOs, but the responsibility, the accountability that comes with it, the things. If you are not well rooted, if you don't have a strong relationship that goes beyond the world that somehow sometimes feels like it's crumbling all apart, you're gonna lose it. And so,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are a ton of stakeholders when you're a CEO, a ton. And yeah, I mean, to the point about being rooted. Look, I mean, there are a lot of folks. The CEO doesn't really get to have a bad day publicly. I've had a lot privately, right? But publicly, there's a need. I mean, and even through that journey of when I'm talking about of us being, and again, I don't like for any of this to sound like exaggeration, but it really is what was going on.
mm,
We did not have enough of anything to make it week to week. I mean, truly. I mean, it was that situation for us for years. And I do have to say this story just as I'm on that. The one of the ways it's another way where I just I saw the Lord show up in a mighty way. I was invited to speak on a panel for the Georgia Bankers Association,
mm,
and I did not want to go to this thing. It was far away. The panel was an hour and a half. This was before everything was online. I was an hour and a half away drive early in the morning when it started. It started at like 8 o'clock, and I did not want to go to this thing. But something kept telling me I should just do it. It's an opportunity for us to talk about the business. And we were in dire financial straits. But I didn't go there with any anticipation other than just talking. I get off of the panel and I met a president of a local bank.
mm,
And he said, I'm interested in the business. Let's get together. And to make a long story short, he ended up giving us a product that, and this was before the business had 2 years of tax returns, right? All the things that they say that are not possible to have happen. This president of the bank decided that he was going to step in and and partner, give us access to some of the bank's resources at a critical time
mm.
for us to survive. So I mean, it's moments like that, right? When I look back on our journey, and if that not happened, we would not be having this conversation. Truly, I mean, it was like that at the time. But there were moments where we kept being put in different positions. A lot of times, not even being aware of them, that were giving us just a little bit more and a little bit more time to exist. So I know we were talking about family, but um, it's moments like that as I think back over the journey that again I don't know how some of these things came together in the background, but I know the impact that they've had on the business and on me.
Mm. This I just think this will make people even what's clear, at least from the brothers and sisters I know who've been a part, who've been members for some time, that there's a deep love and appreciation, right, of it. I think that if they do not know this detail, I think this will make them love it even more because I think it seemed like there's a mission. It had to come together
Yeah,
given all of the different things that happen. It is only but God that this
yeah.
that this that this institution, this community has come together, man. I think this is
Uh,
great that you're saying it.
it is truly only like for a tremendous amount of grace that this whole thing has come together. And truthfully, I have not done a good job of telling these parts of the story. That's why I was so glad to be able to have this conversation with you,
Mm,
because for certain parts of it, I didn't actually even believe during some of what I was saying that folks would even believe. I like, even now, if I got truly into the real details of what was happening, I don't even know if folks would believe some of this stuff because it was so improbable what was going on. And again, when I go back to talking about like the exact amount of money, I'm not talking about $40. I'm talking about $400,000 coming in exactly when it needs to come in. Or I mean, one panel leading to again an opportunity that prior to that, TK and I were in a situation where November of 2016 we go look at our bank account at Thanksgiving, and the bank account actually said a negative number. And it was the worst Thanksgiving I've ever had because, as y'all know, the banks close. And so we were sitting there, could barely eat our turkey because we were truly without, right? And so I couldn't share this stuff though we were actively going through it. But I do think, and I've been praying a lot about this, that it is important for me now to make sure that I'm very specific about what was going on. So hopefully it's helpful to someone else. But I also think it's the best way to honor the fact that we were brought through it,
Mm,
and I wasn't doing that as it was happening because it just didn't feel like again a thing that folks would believe,
mm,
and I was close to it in many ways. I was in it. I mean, I was in like in the middle of the storm, so I couldn't talk about it as being outside of it because I was. I mean, it was swirling around me and swirled for years. So um, so now that there's a little bit more space, it is very important for me to talk about the parts of the journey that again statistically, if you look at most of our history, statistically it is as close to as impossible as there could be. I
mm,
mean, like I truly am right now. Um, Going back to even how I talked about getting into college or law school or whatever, I feel like I'm living in the impossible, and so to me, it's important to try to be responsible with the opportunity that's been given.
mm. Living in the impossible, man. That's the headline. That is truly the headline here. There are two things there are two things I think even as we're on the tail end of this. Um, One, I think I've touched on this a little bit more, but I just don't want people to speed past the amount of pressure. I think people are under in general. You're under in general, but the amount of pressure in that time. What were your conversations with God during that time? Like literally, what were those conversations? What was like the? Was it kind of like, come on, God, what's going on? Like, how were you able to navigate that without seriously, like completely destructing or completely being so unhealthy? Because I'm pretty sure it wasn't perfect during that
Yeah.
time.
No, it wasn't perfect, but it also wasn't without joy, right? I mean,
Mm.
I felt the entire time that we were. I don't know. There's always been this. I mean, and I'm appreciative of this because both for TK and I, our faith in there were trying circumstances that we were combating day to day, but we ultimately believed that we were going to get to the other side of it. Like
Mm.
that was a steady. I'm very grateful that spirit of ultimately calm was given to us because we still like. I mean, if you go back and look at what was happening in 2016 and 17, we had a lot of great experiences. We had a lot of great people we met and things that were happening. So it wasn't without joy. There was a belief that, and there's a Denzel Washington quote that I came across, um, and the quote goes, he it's a speech that you actually find online too, but he said, "True desire in the heart for anything good is God's proof to you sent beforehand that it's yours already."
Mm.
And I can recite that quote because that was one of the things that I would tell myself. And you asked, what was I talking to God about? I just was asking for him to use us right in this and what we were trying to build as an example of how a business could operate if it stayed focused on the fundamentals. And so we were doing things. I remember early on we're still deeply tied. I'm on the board of a school called Peace Prep, another school that's rooted in the Word.
Mm.
And they had a need for dinner. The students at the school were not eating dinner
Mm.
at night, just given circumstance, we're not. And so I went to TK and I was like, look, I want to, and this is in the middle of our own crisis. I want to figure out a way to, for some of the food that we're buying, to provide dinner service every day for the school. And so I would talk to God about saying, look, God, we're going to I'm going to try to be obedient here, right, for the things that you're leading us to do. And I just have faith that you're gonna help us pay this food bill when it's time to do it. And as time went on, and again, I'd already seen several miracles through this process. So as time went on, I just felt I had a strong confidence that we would be cared for to the level that we needed to be cared for at whatever moment we were in. And that didn't stop happening, and I didn't stop believing that the next milestone was possible either. So I mean, that was mainly the conversation. Just I believe that you will get us through, and if you get us through, I'm going to do everything that I can and try to take opportunities like this to talk about what you did. I'm going
Mm.
to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it in the way that I feel about it, which is that I hope what folks don't hear what I'm saying now. There wasn't a lot of me in any of this that was going on. I would do my best to make sure that folks understood that I still legitimately believe that if not for God, none of what I'm talking about would ever be possible. So I was talking to God about during that time, if I could be seen through it, that I would do everything that I could to share that testimony. And um, I still have that conversation, right? I believe at the end of the day that, and what I want folks to know about what we're trying to get accomplished at TGS is just trying to build a business that's centered on folks. We don't get it right every time. It's something I used to hear in the church. We're not a perfect church, but we're trying to be.
Mm.
We're not a perfect business. We're not a perfect community, a perfect club, whatever word you want to use. But we genuinely wake up every day trying to figure out how to do right by folks. And again, believing that will I don't know how it will look, right? But that will ultimately lead us to be in the position that we're supposed to be in.
Mm. Bruh, this has been a gift, man. Obviously, this was not going to be the only conversation we ever have, but this has been a gift. And I think the natural question we always come to at this stage in the close is kind of, what's ahead. How could people come around and support and prayerfully champion what you and TK, the team, what's ahead for TGS, what's ahead for you? How are you looking to kind of continue to put the momentum that's been behind you forward to continue to serve and build great organizations for the people?
So our vision in this has always been to continue to build clubs throughout the country.
Mm.
And so in addition to Atlanta, DC recently opened, Los Angeles is under construction, and our goal is to continue to do that work across the country. And so if you can add us to your prayer list, we pray that just as we navigate the difficulties of trying to build that network, that that we stay rooted in the reason why we got started. But I mean, past that, I don't really have. I mean, I encourage anybody that's an entrepreneur out there. I still consider myself to be um, what I'll call, I guess, an instinct driven entrepreneur. I'm led by my faith in what I believe is the direction that we should be heading in. And so I ask that you just pray that I'm obedient in that way, because again, I do genuinely believe that we will get to the place that we're ultimately supposed to be in. We announced that we were going to DC in 2018 and didn't open it until basically 2021.
Hmm.
And it took us going through all sorts of obstacles, including a pandemic, right, to realize that the timing it's never fully up to us. We told folks we were open DC a minute ago, but while there were delays on that end, what we also saw happen last year, that was another way that God is moving within this community, is that we had a 99% retention rate in a pandemic.
Mm,
Without that retention rate being what it was, I don't know what sort of conversation we're having. So,
mm,
you know, I, my goal, right, and the thing that I can identify is continuing to build communities and physical spaces across the country. But we genuinely will continue to kind of go where this thing leads us, and to do it with again the same goal that we started with, which is just to try to be helpful to folks. If there's one way to understand what we're trying to do at TGS, it's really just trying to figure out how to be helpful and to create a context for folks to know one another.
mm. My brother, man, I think on behalf of our brothers and sisters that will hear this and see this, but those who have been privy and privileged to know and learn about your story, uh, you know, you're helping many. By the grace of God, you've been helping many, and I pray that He continues to give you the energy and the strength, the wherewithal, and continues to allow for you to be the radical uh, dreamer that we need to create these spaces, especially in times like this. And so, my brother, offline, as I said, man, I have so much respect for you. We're co-laborers in this kingdom work. But I know that if not, there are many more brothers and sisters who are going to be your champion behind you because of the work and because of the foundation that it rests upon. So, brother, man, all respect to you, man. I'm thankful for you, man, and
I appreciate
I'm
you.
excited about what's to come.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, and thank you for what you're doing here.
Mm.
There's you could have positioned this platform in a lot of different ways, but to center your faith and the faith of others in the conversation is a pleasure for me to be able to do. So thank you for the opportunity to be able to share a little bit about what we're doing.
Most definitely, good brother. Ryan, my brother, all respect, man. Speak with you soon.